Paul, you've been helping funds raise capital for a long, long time, and these are probably some of the most challenging years that you may have seen in your career. Can you elaborate on that and tell us what you see for the fundraising environment in the near future?
Well, I think if you're expressly talking about Asia, I think there's a growing interest, and what will follow that, we hope, is some investment in the region. I've been coming out here for almost 20 years now, and you once again are starting to feel the region getting traction. Of course, the IPO market in China has been active, and that's something that we're a little jealous, a little envious of in the States right now. But I think there is interest, and I think people are looking at the emerging markets, and many consider China to be an emerging market. And when I think of the region, I think of China out here. And there is interest, and I think you're going to see a lot of activity over the next 18 to 24 months.
What are the sectors in terms of alternative assets that seem to be rebounding the fastest from the perspective of LP interest?
Well, it depends. Again, if you're talking specifically Asia, I think there's a lot of interest in the consumer side. Still a lot of interest in using some of the ideas that have been created in the TMT area, where you're going to see that levered out here in the region. And so a lot of people don't look to the region so much for the technology and the creation of technology as they do, really expanding it.
Okay. How has the discussion gone in the last 12 or 18 months between LPs and GPs? What are some of the issues that are being discussed? Are there any changes that are going on in that relationship as a result of the economic turmoil that we've seen and the stress that LPs are under?
Well, as we all know, the venture capital, the private equity, business, the industry, and the investment is a long-term business. And so it's a little painful when you have to look down the barrel of, some pain for another 3 or 4 years. And so there has been a lot of stress. There's been tension, and it surrounds perhaps some funds that have raised maybe a bit more money than they needed to invest. In some cases, they've returned capital. In other cases, they haven't. And so there are some limited partners that are lobbying some of these firms that maybe to be a little less aggressive on capital calls, or perhaps to even relieve them of some of their commitments. So that's happening, and I think in some cases it's justified.
Okay. What about in terms of the Asia fundraising environment? Seems to be still challenging in these times. What are things that a fund can be doing to enhance its chances of interest among limited partners, aside from the obvious of producing good track record?
Well, it's a good question, and it's one that we try to address as often as possible, because we believe that, particularly in a market like this, part of one's responsibility as a general partner is to educate their prospective investors. And so we at our firm work assiduously on this to embrace a general partner early in the process, way before they're thinking about raising a fund, and then we try to encourage them and really help prepare them to go to the marketplace and educate folks. And so you have meetings in different cities, not to talk so much about your fund, but to talk about your opportunity. If you're raising a fund to invest in China, then you want to be able to explain and sort of to titillate people a little bit about the opportunity, but also to educate them, because you have cultural differences in Asia that are like a quilt, and so it's not just there's no not in Asia. I mean, you have the China market, the India market, the Southeast Asia market, and there's a lot of different markets here that one has to become educated about, and they have different opportunities, and so we try to encourage people to do that. Now, if someone has that patience and is willing to do that, then one can go back to these prospective investors later, perhaps with an opportunity, and then I think it has more validity.
Okay. We also hear a lot these days about the sovereign wealth funds and the liquidity among the LP markets here in Asia, whereas in the U.S. We hear quite the opposite: pension funds, endowments are struggling with rebalancing their portfolio and struggling with the liquidity issues. What are some of the things that you've noticed about how LPs operate differently in Asia as opposed to in the Western world?
Well, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. What you're seeing is there's a sort of a declination in the in the interest and the liquidity in the U.S. because number one, your pension plans, because of demographics, more people are retiring, and then you've had the denominator effect, and so this means that they might even be over allocated to the asset class, and then thirdly, they've had very few distributions, and in the U.S. at least, particularly amongst your large public pension plans, they were used to playing with the house's money. And so they simply were giving money back that has been distributed to them. This last 3 or 4 years, they haven't had many distributions, so thus and so they can't, invest as aggressively. And then secondly, because of the denominator effect, they may be over allocated to the asset class, and so there is a drought as far as capital in the U.S. that can be allocated to the asset class. So this means they're trying to pick and choose between the funds they're going to re-up with and the ones that they won't be able to re-up with. And so that means that getting a new name into a portfolio is very difficult. Now, if that new name happens to be maybe one that resides in an emerging market, they may have a little bit of better chance, I think. And now to the sovereign wealth funds, we've been doing a study internally, and so we have, I would say, good relationships with the larger sovereign wealth funds around the world. And what you notice, and you're absolutely right, some of them are new to the market, particularly here in China. But they have such large amounts of capital that they find it difficult, I think, to invest in smaller funds and to invest small amounts of money. I had one tell me that the minimum investment had to be at least $100 million. So this means they need advisory work. This means there's a great market here for different fund-to-funds. And I think that's a very wise thing to do early on in your investment cycle if you're new to the asset class, is you go to smart advisors and smart fund-to-funds and let them be your headlights. And so even though there's more money here, it doesn't mean that you, as a fund, either in the region or outside the region, come here and knock on someone's door and get a lot of money. These are very sophisticated young people. They've been around the marketplace. These wealth funds have been smart enough to bring people in who are experienced, and they can draw on their experience. And I think they're going along slowly but wisely.
Okay, great. Thank you for your insights.